Hi, my name is Angela Bromet, and I'm here for the Klabu X filling pieces about Keti Koti. We're going to talk about Keti Koti, post slavery, ambition, sports, and what else is to come. At the table, we have a multitude of guests. We're going to introduce ourselves, and then we're going to dive in. Thank you. We're going to start here. What's your name, and what's your connection to Keti Koti?
My name is Glenn Faria. I'm a writer, and my connection to Keti Koti is actually the place I'm from. I'm from Suriname. It speaks as it says, right? I'm so connected to it. I can't get loose from it.
Okay, thank you. Next to you.
I'm Esmeralda. Do I have to tell my profession and
Yeah,
like my
helps.
birthday? I'm a stylist and I'm a fashion editor for Vogue Netherlands. Yeah, that's who I am.
Okay, cool.
I'm Alex. I work here at Klabu, and since the start of the conversation with Filling Pieces, we've been finding ways on how to showcase the beauty of Keti Koti and how we can share it with the world. So really happy that we're here today.
I'm Myra. I'm head of brand at a brand called Versus. I'm also a storyteller. My connection is essentially looking at how football can be a force for good and societal change. And this is what we're trying to do with the new kit.
Wow, it's very, very hard to break this record of intro. Everybody is so amazing. Well, my name is Mohammed, and I am a member of the Klabu community here in Amsterdam. And I'm also the founder and host of the City Rights Radio.
Thank you. And last but not least.
To start, I'm very honored to, be at a table with these beautiful individuals. Just to start, my name is Guillaume Philibert, the founder and creative director of Filling Pieces. Keti Koti for me is a very important topic, not only to educate ourselves and everyone about, the dark page in the history, but also the freedom and the celebration of what it is to be, one of the grandchildren or the children of Surinamese descent, and how we can translate that to a positive message for the next generations.
Okay. Filling Pieces has an annual connection to Keti Koti.
Mm-hmm.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
100%. As the founder of a company in fashion, I feel that as a brand, there's so much we can do to stimulate positive change. And the good thing about, I think, fashion is that on one part, it's the business part, but the other part, it's also inspiration and guiding the way. And I feel that, with a brand, or brands in general, should feel the need to push for positive change. So I grew up in a Surinamese household in a very small town in the Netherlands, Heemskerk, being, with my brother and sister, one of the few Surinamese people in the neighborhood, obviously with its challenges. And starting the brand, my parents always told me, like, you have to work twice as hard, which is, I definitely believe that's true in Dutch society. But it also gave me a message that, life and the experiences that you see, try to share it with people. Things that you have, share it with the people around you, and try to be a positive change for the world. So when I started the brand, it was already kind of deep rooted in my personality and also in the team and how we put the people together that work for the company and that work together with me. And I think around 4 or 5 years ago, there was a key figure in our company, Leroy, also of Surinamese descent, Leroy Franklin. Nemo, he's such a close friend to me, and we always had this dream about doing something for Suriname. We shot there several times, and going there on vacation, I really felt that that's a Surinamese person. Besides the beautiful culture, the people, the food, the environment, etc., it was something that we wanted to create more awareness about. But also seeing the less positive side of Suriname, where you see that the company is not always in a great shape. And I felt that we, as a Dutch brand with, Surinamese descent and really standing for, celebration of culture, is that we needed to do something to create positive change, and education is a part of that. And that's where the whole idea of Unity for Suriname came from. And besides everything that I said before, I was 1 or 2 I was 1 or 2 years old when I went to Suriname for the first time. I can't really remember that time, but living in a small Dutch village, I never really felt Dutch. I felt Surinamese because that's how I was brought up. But then going to Suriname for the first time when I was 12, you know, I was referred to as a tata, right?
Yeah.
Like, I felt Surinamese going there. So
Tata as in Dutch.
sorry,
Yeah.
sorry.
Dutch person.
Yeah,
Tata,
and that did something to me in a way where it really motivated me just to be even more proud to be Surinamese, but also be proud of my upbringings here because it made it me the person who I am. And what I felt that, you know, coming back to the Netherlands, so many people around me from, you know, different walks of life of Surinamese descent, they all want to do something for the country. They all want to really put their best feet forward, but they don't know how to do it or what to do. And I felt that that the brand could be a connector to put these people together, and on one side, you know, do something good for the country, and try to help for the best that we can. But the other side, I also felt that for people from Surinamese descent or people in Suriname, they need to have a point of reference, saying like, I could, you know, besides being a doctor or a soccer player, I could be an artist. I could be the editor of Vogue, right? I could be, you know, there's so much we can do because there's so many successful people from Surinamese descent in the Netherlands. And I wanted to create more awareness with these campaigns about what you can become. And that's also, I think, for me, freedom, right? Freedom to learn, freedom to dream, and freedom to become whoever you want to be. So that's, I would say, the start of Unity for Suriname and the program we're doing during Keti Koti.
Thank you for kicking it off so
Sorry,
nice.
so many words, man.
No,
I'm sorry.
man.
So many words, man.
We're all
Thank you,
listening.
thank
We're all
you.
listening.
It's powerful, man, honestly.
Please don't ask me a question.
Esmeralda. You're next. Let's assume that outside of this setting, not everybody knows what Keti Koti is, and like for the historical aspect of it. Could you enlighten that a little bit? Like, what is it? What is the story behind it?
Keti Koti, literally, I'm really like, how do I pronounce it? That is not like English. It means broken chains.
Yes.
And it's 160 or 150 years end of slavery. It's a day of remembrance for us, but also a day of celebration. So that's what it.
How do you look at like celebrating and remembering, right? How do you find the balance within that?
For me, it's every year a bit different. So it depends on how I feel, but I do like to spend it with family. And it's relatively not so long ago, you know, or literally not so long ago. I looked up like my family tree, and it's like my grandfather had a shoe store in Paramaribo, and with a big house, and in the house also my dad's grandmother lived there, and her parents were slaves still. So the direct influence that it had, like for me, to put it in a context like how my dad was raised, like his grandmother also helped raising him and was very a direct influence to him. But her parents were still slaves, and that's crazy. And then I looked up, like, our family tree is digitalized, so I could really look up, and like Hendrik was like 12 when it ended, but they had to work 10 years longer. So he was 22 when it really ended. So to put it in that perspective, for me, it's really such a direct influence still.
Yeah. Guillaume, you said something that really stuck in my head. The word freedom, right? A person growing up, like born and raised in this country, maybe at the age of 10 at the moment as we speak, can feel that freedom is almost a given, right? But how do you look at freedom, the word, but also what it means to you as a entrepreneur? Because I could assume you are free. You have a business. You can do whatever you want to do. But what is freedom to you? Is it deeper than just the ability to buy, to go, to do?
I think freedom for me, it varies per person, right? And you know where the person stands in terms of life, and I always try to look around me to see what freedom means for other people, because then it's a point of reference for me about how free I am, right? And maybe to explain a little bit more is that, sometimes I wake up moody or whatever, and I learned, or at least my parents taught me that, there's always people in positions, in more challenging positions, right? So I feel that freedom for me is to learn to wake up every day and not to be judged for who I am or what I look like, and or how I think, as long as it doesn't hurt other people. So freedom for me is really to be yourself without any limitations.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that unfortunately in today's society, there's still minorities, there's still people in challenged positions, and that's something that I think we're all on the table would like to change. And ideally, freedom is for everyone, and unfortunately, it's not a given, and there still needs to be fought for. But in an ideal scenario, freedom means not to be judged, be able to move freely, to explore, to enjoy, and make the best out of life.
Mo,
Yo,
what does freedom mean to you?
wow. I would have said the same, but he just said it is subjective. I have been a refugee. I was undocumented for a very long time. And for a long time, I did not feel free because I did not have the certainty of having a future. It's very quiet. in here. Um, I would like to give an example. I have a residency permit, but even if I go out in the street and someone insults me, I cannot do anything because the mere risk of putting myself in a situation where law enforcement or anyone else is involved could mean I can potentially lose that. So even though this residency permit give me certain freedom, I still have to humble myself, avoid trouble, be the one to walk away, even in very, very difficult situation, because I want a future, I want a stability, I want to live, but at the same time, I'm not free to defend myself, to stand up for myself
Yeah,
to some extent.
there's still borders right there. There's
Yeah.
still captivity. Yeah.
So for me, freedom would be to be able to defend myself, be able to stand up for myself, be able to speak my mind without holding back. Of course, not speaking to hurt someone else,
Yeah.
but
To
yeah,
defend yourself, yeah.
yeah,
The freedom to
Everybody has the
express.
same right. Yeah.
to express, but also to defend. We live in a very, very modern, sophisticated, but also dangerous and chaotic society. And most of the times, having to be the one to be like, I'm the bigger man, even though sometimes, no, I worked so hard to be where I am, so I don't want to risk losing it.
Is there a double feeling on July 1st where others celebrate freedom and you understand that we are not all free?
No.
Is there like a double feeling within that?
Well, first of all, the 1st of July is my birthday, so
So we're celebrating.
We will never forget now. Eh?
and from last year, I started as a tradition to celebrate it at Oster Park.
Yeah.
So-
it's good
You have a big
fun.
party.
Yeah. But yes, on the 1st of July, Keti Koti, the breaking of chains, also makes 25 years, for instance, since the Koopleinsweg was initiated in the Netherlands. And this meant anyone who is not of a Dutch nationality or who does not have the legal residence cannot have access to basic things that society has to offer, government.
Is that 25 years ago exactly?
I think, yes.
Oh, that's crazy, bro.
Yeah.
That's
So
crazy.
this means that because social services in the Dutch society is linked to having a BSN, many undocumented people do not have access to healthcare, to banking, to housing, education. Maybe you can learn Dutch, but yeah.
Yeah.
But while this is being celebrated, and I'm a black person from Africa, I know the impact of slavery and neocolonialism and everything. I'm very happy to be able to celebrate this, but at the same time, I'm very sad that for my people, the undocumented people, refugees and migrants that are here, it's also a day that we get to remember as something that put us at the lowest end spectrum of the class in society. So, yeah.
Yeah, so it always has to go with it goes along with what is the reason? What is the reason why chains were broken? So people never talk about that. Like for instance, if you say like the 1st of July should be a celebration, it's like, yeah, but what was the reason people broke the chains? Was it because people thought we can't treat people like this? Is that the reason why we broke the chains, or is it the reason because there was pressure from other countries?
Yeah.
And other countries pressured the Dutch society into, you can't do this anymore. Even like 1863, that was the first end of slavery, when people still had to work for 10 years. It was all about money. So I still think, and hearing your story, it's difficult for me to celebrate. Every time people talk about let's celebrate together, it's like, what are we celebrating?
Yeah.
Are we celebrating a forced decision? If that decision wasn't forced back then, would they have changed? Would they have changed? So I'm really careful with that.
It's a really strong point, because when you think about it, the translation breaking of the chains, even if those chains are broken, the effect of that, you mentioned how close to you that is away. The long-lasting effect can never be wiped away. And even if you look in society today, if you're to look at, I'm not Dutch, but if I'm to look at myself and look at my counterpart, even though I am quote-unquote free from what my ancestors went through, paper on paper, my counterpart, we are not treated the same. I'm a black man with locks. A white man is completely differently treated to I am. So there's freedom, but the level of privilege I have compared to a counterpart is not the same. It's literally what you're talking about. Yes, there's been something that's happened that we're free, but I do not have the level of access or opportunity that someone who's probably had, we could have been in the same place at the same time. I don't have that. And that's something that is, really, really heavy. And when you talk about education, that's another conversation itself, because even though things have happened, we still live in a society where people have these perceptions that things haven't happened.
Yeah.
And
No, but it's even we're celebrating heroes in this country.
There's something that pops in my mind that I want to ask to those of Surinamese descent at this table, right? We have a very big voice in this country. We've always been in the forefront, together with the people from the Caribbean. Always been on the forefront of a lot of the things that are happening now. Those that came before us pushed that forward.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there a threat that we might think that the fight is over and we settle for our July 1st and we forget to stand side by side with those that are still fighting?
Yeah, for real. Yeah. That's the answer to that question is yes.
In what way?
Because we're celebrating our freedom, the 1st of July, but we're forgetting a lot of unfree people while celebrating freedom.
Yeah.
I think if we celebrate freedom, it should be freedom for all. We can't celebrate freedom if people aren't actually free.
When George Floyd died, the Black Lives Matter started. Even us undocumented people were like, no, this should not happen. But at the same time, there are people that are being enslaved in Libya and things like that. And there are people that have been put in detention centers for months for just riding through a red light. And then when this happens, you don't see any person being like, yo, this is a black person, this is my brother, let me do something. But when it happens in America, to some extent, I feel like this is, I don't want to, but it feels like people feel more related to Black Americans than to the
Yes.
general you know?
It's also a ripple from slavery. It's like a friend of mine. I'm not gonna say his name because I don't know if he wants this to be pronounced. He was saying like he's a Maron. So he goes. It's a runaway slave who built a life in the.
And
in
they,
the jungle.
I just want to say, like you said, like they were pressured from outside the Dutch,
Yeah.
but they were pressured a lot from the Maroons because they kept helping
Yeah.
enslaved people to, like, I listened to Wijslaaf van Suriname, and I was at Pick and Slay, like a Maroon Samaka Museum.
Yeah.
I just went there, and they showed like the Dutch were mostly pressured by the Maroons.
Yeah.
So that's why they ended
Yeah.
slavery. It was not a decision like, oh, this is
so
bad,
he,
you know. Like
so he comes from a
Yeah.
strong
Yeah.
line of black people, like the warriors. We call them our superheroes,
Yeah.
you know. But he's playing cards with his father, and he's something in 60, and his dad is older, I think 80 or something, and they're playing cards, and his dad is like, I think I'm losing. And he asks his dad, like, why do you think you're losing? And he's like, yeah, I got only niggers left. And those are the worthless cards. They call them niggers. And it's a black guy saying it. So that's the way a lot of black people are still influenced by slavery, by learning that you're not worth anything. And keeping
but
that,
literally, like my dad would used to like. I can't speak Sranang Tongo real well
the same, yeah,
because
man.
my dad, like, I talked to him about it. It was always like, no, you have to speak Dutch correctly. You don't need, like, it's a retarded language. You don't need to learn it. But he always speaks it with his brother. So I was like, yeah. And I grew up in.
It was a social, more of a
Yeah.
social class
Yeah.
thing.
No,
Even
but then he told me like when he went to school, they would be slapped if they were speaking Sranang Tongo.
Yeah,
You
man.
had to speak Dutch. You had to sing the Dutch national anthem every
yeah.
morning. And then I asked him, like, but the teachers, weren't they like black teachers? And he was like, yeah, the teachers were black, but every head of school was a preacher, and it was a white Dutch man.
Yeah.
So it was literally beaten out of him. And he was always like, you don't have to look like into our nature religion like we have. Like, you don't have to look. It's retarded, you know. It's really like still so fresh, you know. So
Even telling your kids, because it's in small things. Even telling your kids, even telling Surinamese kids they should work 10 times harder in school.
yeah,
It's actually telling them that it's actually for a kid. It's like, why should I work then? I'm also a human, right? So you're not the same worth as a white kid in your class. You have to work 10 times harder. It's so indoctrinated in our.
It's the
in
after
our-
effects. Like you can end something,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that everything that was endured just goes away. It's
Yeah,
just
man.
not snapping your fingers.
Yeah,
So
man.
generations and generations, whatever like diaspora is, there's been a lot of pain that's been unlearned from, and day to day you're still dealing with a lot of traumatic things that in front of you.
Yeah.
Like you said about, you know, you have to learn Dutch, or what you're saying about, you know, you have to work 10 times harder. These are things or notions that were preconceived in a
Yeah,
time
yeah.
where it was a pressure cooker environment, and if you want to survive, you have to do
Yeah,
this.
man.
And that's why things like this is so important, because to the conversation about do you celebrate or not, I think it's important to celebrate the efforts of people that have gone before us
Yeah.
and fought
Yeah, okay, for real.
and our
Yeah.
heritage. But it's also important to educate not just ourselves, but
Yeah.
people outside.
Yeah.
And I think it's not just about educating ourselves. People have their own education to do as well. Like you mentioned about, you know, the king and everything, no one's take his
Yeah.
heritage. That's education you have to do to realize, okay, what did they really go through?
Yeah.
And what part can I play in actually listening and understanding what's going on? Because ultimately, it's pain. It's having to talk about experiences you've gone through is traumatic. Having to relive that is traumatic. Mo, you're so strong, but even having to speak about that, it moved you, right? It's heavy.
Yeah.
And it's not down to just you to fight that. It's down on people, like, as you mentioned, if I've got something and I can give, I'm going to give back. And that's why I've always held you in such high respect, because what you've done in terms of this collaboration with Klabu and the spirit of this is we are giving back to our community. We are strengthening our community and we're moving things forward. So any single person that sees the brand, sees the kit, will know about our heritage and know about the positive things and know that going forward, whatever happened in the past can never happen again. And that's where the strength and the celebration should come from, that we're in a place now where we can move forward gradually and celebrate the spirit of what makes us who we are. As you mentioned, that the heritage and spirit of Surinamese heritage in this nation is amazing. How a nation of that many people can be so influential is amazing. It's powerful. And it should be spoken about over and over and over again.
But there's still young kids, like the young boys, 17 years old, walking the street with traumas. They don't even know where
it stems from.
Where it's from. You know, it's like they're mad, but they don't know why they're mad. You know what I mean? And it's actually how do you call it? Like it's traumas from decades ago.
Generations before.
Generational trauma.
I want to dive into that because I'm wondering, like, what do you use as an escape? Because all of the things that we're saying is factual. It's there. But we have to keep on living, right? As long as we're breathing, we got to do something. So I'm wondering, like, just going around the table in hard times and times of not seeing, like, the end goal, what kept you going? What did you do to escape? What was your go-to thing? Like, start with
art, like music, writing, creating. That's the only that has been my thing for since I was 12 or something. I used that as a way to express and actually educate the ones around me.
And you?
For me as well, creating, but also sense of community. Just to surround yourself with people you feel really comfortable with, and dancing. That's why celebration is also very important. Like just to let loose and that's for me
spiritual.
Really, spiritual. Yeah,
but the why is important. But that's what I wanted to say. Like, I'm not against celebrating, but the why.
Me neither.
Why are we celebrating?
Yeah.
Do you know why you're there?
Exactly.
Not just for the cake.
Sorry, just on that. I had a conversation with a cousin recently. Of course, Juneteenth is a new holiday in the States, and he was mentioning that he found it very awkward because white people coming up to him and saying, "Oh, happy holiday to Juneteenth," and he in his head he was like, "Okay, so are you not happy about this? Why is it just me that's celebrating this? Like, shouldn't we all be celebrating that this ended?" And it's a very, again, that's why education is such an important piece, because you have people that don't even realize the gravity of what's happened.
But I totally agree with you. So that's why also, like, when people ask me, like white people, or like, for instance, I just did a big editorial in Suriname, and then they ask me, like, how do you feel about Keti Koti? I will always give it back to them. How do you feel about Keti Koti?
I posted a whole thing about that. I was like, why?
Why are you asking me?
This is also like, this is mainly your problem, you know. Like,
no, but it's our history. It's our history.
It's a collective.
It's a collective. Especially in this country, it's more like seen like it's our chain that we. But like, no, it's your problem as well. You need to solve this together, or step forwards together.
For you, what was your escape?
No, but I think what you were just saying about collective responsibility is a bit what we're trying to do with Klabu, you know, is how there's a big situation that Mo touched upon around migration and refugees, and people often think the problem is so huge that what can I do as an individual? And we really believe that through sport, you know, it just takes an hour on a Tuesday evening when we go to the park and play basketball or dance, or and then you connect with people, and then you become friends, and you realize, okay, well, actually, I don't need to do that much to make someone feel part of a community, feel part of a family, feel recognized, and so sport has always been something for me where, you know, if you're feeling a bit down, or you're feeling depressed, or, you know, you were saying sometimes you wake up a bit moody and you go for a run or you play football, you feel better. And we see that every day in the refugee camps where we work, you know, and life is not amazing in a refugee camp. It's really, really, really hard. But for that hour where people are playing, issues go away and dreams come and creativity and hope and feeling like you're normal again because
And
you're
it's so
told
universal as well.
exactly.
Like everywhere we go, we take a ball with us. I have two boys, and then everywhere they are, they play soccer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so universal.
And in some places, and we see it here in Amsterdam as well, we play sports with people from like 30 different countries sometimes. No one has any connection. Some are architects, some are designers, some are musicians, some are teachers. Some people were born in Suriname, some in Syria, some in Paris. And yet for an hour, no one cares.
Yeah.
And
As long as the ball keeps rolling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we actually had a moment a few weeks ago where we had two groups of people coming to our workout here in Amsterdam who usually in the shelters where a lot of the asylum seekers are living have tensions. And they got to the workout and they were a bit separated from each other. And then 5 minutes in, everyone was hugging, everyone was helping each other up, throwing a ball at each other. And you could see that those tensions and the issues were slowly going away. Not forever, and it doesn't solve every problem, but at least it's a way of dealing with a bit.
Would you also be open, like if we do our round, to kind of elaborate a little bit more about the sports programs that you guys do?
Of course.
Just to have that reference.
Yeah.
For you, what was your escape?
Different things. I think design, creating products. I studied architecture, so at school I learned how to work with these programs and sketch and design was a way out for me, a space to clear my head. But yeah, like as said as well, like community is and people around you that inspire you. So short story or long story short, I was 18, 19 when I started coming to Amsterdam more often, and I met these group of guys that looked like me. They had the same vision, the same purpose. Design was their language, and the boys from Daily Paper and Olaf, and I found a place of belonging and guys that looked like me and respected me for who I am, coming from a smaller little village where I played field hockey. My brother and I were the only colored people at the club. Right,
you were damn good. You were damn good. You're the best.
No, and that's maybe a point of reference to me of one of the talents that are part of the shoot. His name is Terrence Peters, right? Also of Surinamese descent, and he's a professional field hockey player playing for the Dutch team. And when we did the shoot, we spoke about how my experiences were on the field, not always so nice, even from my teammates. And he had similar stories, but he made it out to the top of the Dutch level. He plays for the national team, and he invited me to go to a game, and I went to 2 games this week because I love the sport, but I didn't have the best experience with it. But that for me this week I felt great because I was able to see him on the field doing his thing as a point of reference once again, because he's a person that looks like me playing a game I liked and never felt connected to other people on the field because I was just different, and that made me feel really good. So that's also for me a way to enjoy, and I love sports. I love design. I love my family. So I have a lot of, I would say, places I could go to. If I feel a certain way.
Yeah, man.
Well, now me? Well, sometimes in the past, great people came together and started fighting for change. In Africa, this led to independence of many countries. In America, the civil rights movement led to black people having more rights. And then everybody got comfortable. It became individual. It was not about the community anymore. It's about what I can get, what my children and my immediate descendant can get. And then we come to the current times when it comes to issues affecting undocumented people. It's us and a few people that wants to help. Imagine if all these migrants and marginalized communities could come together to advocate for better living conditions, inclusive policy making for migrants. Sorry. And at this point, we feel like we're on our own. What keeps me going is the fact that despite knowing that I am doomed and that it will be a very, very difficult journey, is to try at least to build up a new group that can be talked about in the next years as this time these people came together and fought for the rights of undocumented people. And hopefully, years to come, there will be panels that will be sitting and talking about laws, things that were done.
For speaking for the Surinamese community, right?
Yeah.
It's like you've been the thing what happened is you've been forced to out of Africa, been brought to South America. Everything was focused on you forgetting Africa. All the ropes you had, all the connections you had with Africa were broken. The language, everything, the culture, the music, the even the religion, names, everything was broken. So that disconnect with Africa is still in this generation. This generation feels a huge disconnect with Africa because that's what they've been taught. And I think actually the new generation, like the branch you were talking about, those guys like Daily Paper, like they're actually hyping it up again. They're bringing the community back. They're bringing the bridge to Africa back. So nobody owns their heritage yet. Like the Surinamese community forgot their heritage.
Well, he looks like a Fula man. I could call him Bappa. You know? I mean, it happened. You know, all we can do is to celebrate, mourn, be sad, keep educating people.
Yeah.
And I think the choice of excluding undocumented people in the struggle is not because of this trauma. Everybody has a role to play.
Yeah.
And it could be an Instagram post, hey, I saw what is happening in Tarapo, and this is not fair.
True.
You know? This, we could go back, like, you know, slavery also did a lot to Africa.
Yeah.
You have for 400 years, all the young, strong were taken. The continent was divided.
Yeah.
Tribes that used to be neighbors all of a sudden found themselves being in different countries. You know, resources being exploited, colonialism. I always struggle with that word. You know, it being the exploiters, all these shell companies going there, taking resources and then sending it back. And then when we come here, we are here to take the jobs.
Yeah.
What jobs? We do cleaning. We do all the jobs that nobody wants to do.
Yeah.
And then we are still here to take the job. And if we don't, who will?
Yeah.
Basically, we play a very, very important role.
Yeah.
But it's not recognized. And this is also bring us back to the Linkage Act and, of course, slavery and everything. So what I'm...
No, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, for real.
What I'm saying is, it is high time. Look, we are voiceless. If you look in Amsterdam, there are less than 10 undocumented people that speak on behalf of all undocumented people. You know, of the estimate from the city states that the range of undocumented people living in Amsterdam is 20 to 60,000. That's a huge number.
Yeah.
And of all the 60,000, if you look Google here at the Packhouse des Wijken, at the protest, you see the same faces all the time. Imagine what power of the Surinamese community, the Black community in Europe, what power their solidarity could bring. But what you see is most of the times very, very, a lot of good-hearted white people coming to save your African brothers, starting up organizations to help them. And some of the times we even meet some Surinamese people in the street to ask them for information. Where is the train station? And they look at you like you're nobody.
Yeah, that's true. But on I think this is it's an interesting
important.
because
Yeah.
this is directly about my community. So what the thing is, bro,
Yeah.
is that the Surinamese community had it wasn't an easy time in Holland for the Surinamese community. From the moment we got here till now, the Surinamese community has been trying to find a way to live here and to be respected and to be accepted, right? So, for instance, as if a mother has to raise like 3 kids on her own in a neighborhood that doesn't support her and doesn't support her kids, that is isolated, she has a lot of struggles, right? So there's not a lot of time left for educating kids as with worldly things. A lot of white people that help you are a lot of white people have a different history than the Surinamese community, where they have had room to develop certain like
more resources
they have more
and more rest,
resources,
more-
more rest,
yeah.
more, you know. So that
I don't want to take anything away from what you said, because I think your explanation is right. But I do want to emphasize the appeal. that
No,
Mark
no,
made.
and I'm
That
with you. I'm with you on that.
Yeah,
I'm with you on
yeah.
that one. But it's not like Surinamese people are turning
That's-
their
yeah,
backs to.
I really understand.
I want
It's-
to
it's
speak.
the
I want
power
to
of
speak to
many.
what.
Yeah.
I want to speak to what Mo was saying, because I think in terms of when we were speaking about what our outputs are for what I do with Versus Club, it's very similar, and it will go to what we spoke about the power of sport. But what you're touching on is something we mentioned at the beginning, and it's the legacy of trauma and pain, because ultimately everyone has been through a lot. So when you're fighting your own individual fight, no matter what it is, it's very hard to look around you and be like, oh my gosh, there's other people that are hurting as well. And we had this conversation off air where we talked about privilege, and everyone has a level of privilege. Us three look the same, but we have more privilege than you, simply based on what you said. There's certain rights that you do not have access to,
for real.
but we all look the same. We have a privilege. And
For
all
real.
you're saying is, ultimately, if we had conversations and spoke about things, I'll be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that I'm living like that. How
Yeah.
can I help? And that's why you asked a question about how do we express ourselves.
Yeah.
My thing has always been football. I grew up playing football, and football for me is, sports is a universal language, but football is the true universal language. I grew up in urban part of London, but the pocket I was a very white area. Played football all my life, traveled the country, traveled Europe, met loads of different people. And despite all having different backgrounds, when we was all on that pitch, we were the same for 90 minutes. And that's one thing I loved about the game. We all spoke, whether it's in Dutch, French, English,
yeah.
pass forward, pass back, go to goalkeeper, it's all the same. And what I learned through growing up and realizing that I loved having conversation with people is, if everyone's on the same page for a moment in time, it means that everyone's together, and then you can share things. And once you share things, you learn information, you can move forward. That's why I think this is important, because we've come together.
No,
That's
even
why
now,
I think.
even now, this conversation
Yeah.
we're having right
Yeah.
now, this conversation is never held.
Yeah,
Nobody
exactly.
has this conversation.
But specifically to the mission, that's why I think the power of this jersey is so powerful, because ultimately when you're in one space and someone looks at something and it's a global language, people go, what is the story behind that? Football kits are uniform, they're heritage, they're part of communities. People goes, what is the story behind that? And when you say, let me tell you, this is about X, Y, and Z, this is about the people that had to go through this, suddenly you've created this avenue where people's minds are open. At where I work Versus, a lot of the time, what I try to do in my day-to-day through my passion of football is say that I do not have everyone's lived experience, but I have a platform. If I speak to you, I can, one article or pushing something forward may have that message in people's houses that have never understood that before, and then the movement happens. And I think that's why things like this is so important. We're having a conversation about real lived experiences. We're all bringing our different lived experiences to the table. I'm not Surinamese, but I've had Surinamese friends. I can never live your lived experiences. You can't live mine. But by sharing them and talking about them, this isn't football, but we're talking about them, we're able to then realize, okay, wow, a united front could help us move forward together, help each other. So no, I really appreciate you sharing that, because that is the power of what your sessions do. And I said I've always respected it, because as you mentioned, in the refugee camps, you've got groups that are usually fractious playing together. Same thing happened in the wars. Wars stopped because people played football matches together. So that is the power of that sport. And hopefully the power of what's happening with this kit here and everything in general has a similar effect where sports can be used for societal change if we listen to each other and come together and move forward.
Yeah, I think just to bounce back on that is, we always say we're using sports. Sports is what we do, but sports is really just a tool. It's
Yes.
For me, it's a hook.
It's the vehicle, and then once they're in, the possibilities are endless.
Exactly. It's how do you get people together who usually would never be together.
Exactly.
They play for a bit, and then they start realizing, okay, well, you're the same as me.
Yeah.
You also like the new Beyonce album, or whatever, or you're also...
we both think Messi's the best player and stuff like that,
Or, you roast someone because they're a Chelsea supporter, or whatever,
to that person.
Well, that is actually true, apart from the fact that you are a hockey fan.
I've never played hockey in my life.
No, he was talking about it right before the program. Yes, from sport, from working out, from the club, we've managed to build a whole community. Today, when I cycle in Amsterdam and I see someone wearing a Klabu shirt,
It's a family.
my man, like I always be like, "Yo, Klabu," and they're always like, "Klabu."
Wow.
It builds this community. So yeah, indeed, like
For those that do not know what it is, because I came across it a while ago as a brand, as a shirt.
Yeah.
And I looked at it and I was like, oh, this is dope. And then kind of going a little bit more into it, I was like, oh, this is really dope. The backstory is nice. But I've seen a lot of NGO works. I've seen a lot of, programs that help people, but aesthetically, often because the message is so important and the work they do is so important, aesthetically is sometimes off. What is it that made you do it in the way that you're doing it? We're talking like EA Sports. Like, it's nuts. Like, can you tell us a little bit more about it? What is the brand? What fueled it? And what does it do?
Yeah. So, I mean, you came to it through the brand. And I think that's, as Mo was saying, it's something you see and it's a way for us to raise awareness. But really what the mission is and what the whole purpose is how can we, in places where there are not many opportunities, starting in refugee camps, but where we also think that there's an opportunity in many places. We'll talk about it later. But we looked at refugee camps as places where people's lives were put on pause. They were fleeing conflict or climate change or persecution, or arriving in a camp which was really inhospitable, where there were very few opportunities. And they were expected to wait 5, 10, 15, 20 years sometimes. And during those years, you also want to live. You don't want to just survive. So once you have the basics, the healthcare, the shelter, the food, basic education, we were thinking there should be more. And there's so many kids in there who love sports, like Mayoa and us, when we were kids, that's what makes us a child again. And when you've had to run away from a conflict and you're living in a camp, you've lost your childhood. And through sports, you can reconnect with that. And you can also start having dreams and hopes that go outside the confines of your camp. For many people, they can't leave the camp. They can't even go to the town next door to see what's up. So you're stuck there. And so we started in Kenya, in a refugee camp in the north, in the desert, near the border with South Sudan, where there are refugees from 13 countries living together, a lot of tensions, also tribes from within these countries that are also have tensions. And we built a community project there where we wanted the locals to be completely in the lead, building a club. Klabu means club in Swahili. And the people in the camp started saying, this is my club, this is my Klabu. Because I can come here, I can play sports for a few hours, I meet people, I get to relax, my mind is at peace. And that was really the start of Klabu. And what you were saying about how the brand comes into play is, we thought, you were talking about the power of the jersey. Every club has a jersey. You were talking about the Friends at Daily Paper. When you look at the Ajax shirt, it has so much power. Same for an Arsenal shirt, a PSG shirt. And often in refugee camps, people are desperate to get a really fake, messy shirt and to wear it. And I've seen the wildest colors of jerseys that have never existed before. Like, really, like you see concepts that are,
One of one.
Yeah.
One of one jersey.
Exactly.
Limited edition.
But it's always about people in the camps wanting the heroes. And
Yeah.
we wanted to flip that story where we were like, no, actually, they're the heroes. And can we design a badge with them, a pattern that they want, colors that they want, so that they can wear it with pride, that they feel it's my shirt now, and wearing it in the camp, and then we sell it to supporters around the world. So instead of being the supporters and following heroes, they are the heroes, and we can become their supporters by buying their shirt, following what's happening in Kenya. We now have projects in Bangladesh, in Greece, here in the Netherlands, soon in Brazil. How can people who just walk past in the street think, okay, this shirt is interesting. Wow, it's for a club in a refugee camp, and it's people who are playing every day. Well, what is happening in that camp? Who are these people? What are their dreams, their stories? And you were talking about NGOs, and indeed, a lot of NGOs do amazing work. And the question is, how can you show that to people? And we wanted, through the brand, to show refugees and the people we work with in a different light. You know, we don't want to show. We want to acknowledge the struggles and the harsh realities, but also show the talents and who these people are, the true stories. And no one had ever seen refugees in that way before we started showing our photography and our campaigns, where it could have been a Nike ad with LeBron, but no, it was Emile from Burundi scoring that dunk.
Yeah.
And so that was the approach with the brand, and it continues to serve that purpose, is raising awareness, raising funds for our projects, and really building that club feeling. Like Mo was saying, when you're cycling down the street, you're in the park, you're in the club, and someone's wearing a shirt, you're like, oh, you're also Klabu. But it's not only here in Amsterdam, it's when I have my meetings with the team in Kenya and Bangladesh, and they see someone in Amsterdam, in New York, in Shanghai is wearing their shirt with their badge. They see it in FIFA, in the game with EA. They're like, whoa, someone cares about me. Someone wears my shirt. Someone wears my badge. And that is really the dream and what we want to replicate around the world.
It's you're doing an amazing job, and I would love to have one day a Klabu shirt with somebody's name on it that's in that camp.
Yeah.
So that name just lives on, you know. And another thing, I have to commend you guys on the way you humanized the people in the pictures. Because we've been fed images about Africa that has always, you know, it just suffocates you, right? And the way you humanize these men and women I love that. And thank you for the explanation. We've been talking about divided realities, right? But how do you unify that? How do you bring that together? And what role can two brands with individual missions but so many similarities? What role can you guys play in bringing the conversation we had at this table, like real conversation with real people, non-scripted? It's that conversation. How do you bring those two worlds closer together? And what role can you play in a country like Suriname, and how can that evolve around 1st of July?
Very good question. I think that the moment we started talking, I think there was so many, mutual beliefs, and there was a lot of similarities on how we look at the world. And I explained, of course, Keti Koti is not only for the Surinamese people, also from the Antilles. And I think the message is broader, but I think the conversation started, obviously, because my parents are from there, to see how can we start off with Suriname as a focus point, and how can we create a safe space where people can meet each other, play games, but also learn, education, play. And that's, I think, was the starting point. And obviously we've done already 2 jerseys in the last years, and I think for this collaboration we wanted to see how can we work together and expand the message to a more global scale. And I think that with the funds of last year we've done with Ilonka, we've done 18 workshops in 3 per week for 6 weeks long, and the results we get out of that, in terms of people actually, kids, with a disability, having fun, creating, and really having a great time in making stuff. And I think design is also a way of not only educating yourself, but also a way to feel free, to create something. And I think that's something that we wanted to bring to a larger audience. And then the conversation started with Klabu, like, what is the long-term vision? What do we want? And I think quite fast we came to the idea of that a clubhouse in Suriname would be amazing, right? Like, how can we create a safe space together? And I'm not saying that will be done in half a year or a year. I think it's a long-term vision, and we want to set a program of workshops and activities and experiences there beforehand, so we can live up to this moment where we can have a clubhouse and have a place where people from all walks of life in Suriname could come and meet each other and play games and learn from each other and explore and educate themselves and being helped in that. So that's kind of the mission that we have. And there's so much more that we would like to do, but
and I think
to start small.
You're talking about two brands coming together that are super close, but also have their areas of expertise and of focus. And I think what's beautiful with this is we want to build a clubhouse that is multifunctional, that is a place where people can play sports and have some leisure, but also learn about design and music and art, which I know are close to your heart, Guillaume, and to the brand. And how can it become really a place where any child, but also young adults, teenagers, people who often are left to the side and have to find something to do, can come there and be inspired and have a place. And it, as you said, it might not be next year, but we'll work on a path that makes sense until we get to the perfect recipe and have a place where in Suriname, like in Kenya and Bangladesh, here and in Brazil, we can have a club.
Yeah. And I would like to add to that is that, for the third time, we've been able, and I'm so grateful for other people that participated also in the shoots. Every single person that have joined, they said, I want to be part of this, and how can we do more besides being in the photo shoot and spreading the message. And hopefully also the clubhouse could be a place where the people from our network and from both brands could become an exchange program where they could go to Suriname and give workshops. And that's also the beauty, I think, of all the different talents from all these different disciplines. They have something to teach, and I think that's where we can create positive change if we can educate the people with things that we have learned and experienced and seen. If we can share that with Suriname in this case, and
please also use that platform for most appeal.
100%.
To keep the struggle alive.
Oh,
yeah.
Now, since this started, there are a lot of undocumented people in the city that doesn't have a lot of places they can go to that they feel welcome. And places like Klabu is one of the places, obviously. And for some reason, I have the impression that the Feeling Peace store could be one of the places we go to window shop. So it's expanding.
Feel free. We have the office upstairs, and that's also something that we feel that the brand is the brand and the company is the company. And yes, we sell goods, but there's so much more that we are doing and that we want to do as a brand. And we also feel that the store in Amsterdam is a place where every person could come and maybe, not per se to buy anything, but it's a place where I think there's good music, there's nice people working there. So feel free. And also the events. And this is also a call to anyone that's going to listen to this podcast. Feel free, and we're a brand with open arms, and we would like to invite people. And if that's not the intention people get from us, we're probably doing something wrong, but that's at least what we want to show, and that's genuinely who we are. So feel free. We had a fun time at the shoot.
Definitely.
So please.
We better see you at the next party.
Definitely.
I think we've had an amazing table with a rare coming together of people in this setting, an open conversation. I commend also the new generation because we're open and more able to talk about certain topics and take it out of the, forgotten zone and just bring it back into
and bring it
and bring it back into light.
Corner.
So from my end, I would want to thank you
Yeah, man.
for what
Thank
you've
you.
added.
Thank you so much.
Again, I'm being the promoter here for Mo. Use your platform to celebrate July 1st, but to also never forget that the struggle still has to continue.